Picture this with me. Your 12-year-old is yelling at you, cursing at you, rolling their eyes at everything you say, snapping back, maybe refusing. And this is a moment that we would label as disrespect, right? Every adult would call this disrespect. It stings, it's embarrassing, and we fear that if we're going to allow this behavior, what are we teaching our kids? What are we teaching our students, right? And yet, is it really disrespect? I want you to ask yourself in these types of moments, is this actually disrespect or is it not a choice at all? It's not a choice at all, folks. It is not a choice. This is the body's biological stress response. But our culture has wired us to see things like this as disobedience, not being polite, right? We want to call good behavior obedient, compliant, polite, pleasant, a respectful tone. They're making eye contact, right? We call this, and I'm using air quotes, good behavior. And that is the way we have been wired culturally by our society, by our upbringing, by the adults in our lives to define these things. And so it can be really, really hard when your kid is acting in a way that most people would label as disrespect, right? If you're in a public place, it is super embarrassing. If you are around your parents or other people in your family, they might feel like you're a weak parent. They might tell you you need to use more punishment, that your kid needs to be more obedient, right? And this is just a quiet pressure that continues to build. And the more time and space we put between correcting that behavior, the more the more pressure we're feeling as a parent or as the adult in a kid's life. And of course, we want our kids to be respectful. I am not saying that we need to overlook disrespect. I'm not saying that at all. Of course, we want our kids to be respectful. But when we mislabel stress as disrespect, just defiance, opposition, then it costs us something. With so many of the families, the parents that I coach, I ask them, okay, this is what you want. This is your expectation, but at what cost? Sometimes the cost is worth the outcome. Sometimes the juice is worth the squeeze, right? But many times it is not worth the cost. So, for example, a kid who doesn't want to do homework, who you have to threaten to do their homework a particular day, is it worth the cost to keep pushing and pressuring them until they do something that particular day at that particular moment? Because the cost is going to be your relationship. The cost is going to be their mental and emotional health. So is it worth that cost? My answer for my own parenting on those days was no, it is not worth the cost. I would rather my kid get an incomplete or a lower grade or a zero than to ruin my relationship with him and to damage his mental and emotional health. So we need to ask ourselves if we're going to treat disrespect, that behavior that feels like disrespect, as actual disrespect and something that should be punished or corrected, at what cost? Because they're already dysregulated. They're already having a hard time. If we are going to push in those moments, we're adding pressure to an already pretty heated up pressure cooker. So it costs us something. Is it worth that cost? Here's what's actually happening in the body when you are receiving behavior that feels or looks like disrespect, opposition, defiance, all of those things that we tend to put into that bucket of what society would tell us is, and I'm using air quotes again here, bad behavior. So, biologically in the body, stress is perceived as threat or danger. Threat or danger. Our autonomic nervous system, what I often refer to as our personal bodyguard, perceives stress as threat and danger. Maybe not physical threat, but it could be social, emotional. cognitive, right? Those psychological, those stresses, those dangers are all perceived as threat in the body. And when the nervous system says threat, threat sounds the alarm, it sends the body into action again automatically without any input or cognitive thinking or intention. It goes into fight, flight, or freeze. And then the thinking brain dims. We either have a greatly reduced access to that thinking brain, or we have absolutely zero access to that thinking brain. So we're going to have a kid here in this scenario that feels very disrespectful, that is really a survival response from their body, a 100% biological, unintentional, automatic response to stress. So that sharp tone, it means this stress, I cannot handle it. I'm going to need to fight. And that internal system of protection brings out the fight automatically. Stress can look like eye rolling. Stress can look like yelling, saying no. It can also look like silence, withdraw, shut down. It can look like compliance when it's actually a kid who is so dysregulated, they are in full freeze mode. Now, you cannot regulate tone, manners, compliance, any of those things from a dysregulated nervous system. If your kid is dysregulated, you can't come in and say, oh, tone and have it shift because it's coming from dysregulation. And your correction is actually going to intensify and escalate that dysregulation, not cause regulation. It's not permissiveness. I can hear so many parents and educators right now in my head. You're being permissive. You're letting something go that shouldn't be let go, all of that, right? But that's not what we're doing. We're not being permissive. We are following the signals of the body. We are following biology to take a beat and understand that that is not the time that any teaching can get through. That this behavior that you're seeing that is challenging and unwanted and doesn't feel good at all, right? Doesn't feel good at all. We are acknowledging that it's not intentional, that the body is sending us a signal right now to say that this kid doesn't feel safe. And we have to take that signal, acknowledge that it's biology, acknowledge that it isn't intentional, and move in a way that's actually going to be helpful. Disrespect doesn't necessarily need correction. It definitely doesn't need correction in the moment. What happens when we do respond in that way? What happens if we respond with correction, with lectures, with making it a teachable moment, with consequences, punishment, power moves? What happens when we do that with an already stressed nervous system? It actually escalates that threat instead of resolving it. So your kid is coming at you yelling, using salty language, saying awful things that are not okay. And when you come back at that with correction, with lectures, with consequences, with power moves, with punishment, you're actually escalating the sense of threat in their body. You are not resolving it. So you're not going to resolve that behavior that you're struggling with in that moment. The unintended message that our kids end up receiving is that their stress makes them unsafe with you. Stress is making them unsafe with you. Now, I'm pretty sure that I know enough about you, even though I don't know you, to know that that is not what you want. That is not what you want for your kid. It's not what you want for yourself, right? That is heartbreaking. So we are not going to blame ourselves. We're not going to shame ourselves. We are doing the best we can with the knowledge that we have in this moment. But now, right here, you're listening to this podcast and you are learning something new that is going to help you to do better, is going to help you to show up in the way that your kid actually needs you to show up, the ways that really you want to show up, because they're going to be far more effective than those instinctual ways that you might have learned in your own childhood and from our society. So we need to shift from how do I stop this to what does this tell me? How do I stop this behavior is what we want to stop thinking. And we want to replace it with what does this behavior actually tell me? What signal is it sending me? Disrespect is a signal. Their tone or volume of voice is information. Behavior is communication. Behavior is a signal. So instead, here's what you can do. Your 12-year-old is screaming, it's going really poorly. You're not feeling good about it. You want it to stop. I'm telling you, they want it to stop also. What can you do in that moment? First, start with slowing it down. Slow down your body movements, slow down your language, soften your tone of voice, your volume. Those are signals to the body of safety. So you are creating signals of safety for your kid's nervous system that is in that danger mode, right? So we're trying to help to restore that sense of felt safety. We also want to lower demands in those moments because they cannot manage the demand. They cannot process the language if their thinking brain is offline, and they cannot manage that demand. They're not going to be able to meet that expectation in that moment. Again, we're not saying that we are lowering demands forever. We are not being permissive about behavior that is not acceptable. We are understanding the behavior, we are reading the signals, and we are adjusting in the moment so that later we can address their nervous system response to stress. And that will help us to change these types of behaviors. Regulate first, teach later. That's why I'm all about nervous system first parenting, nervous system first educating. Everything needs to be nervous system first. This is where dignity lives, folks, for both you and your kid. This is how you treat them with dignity and meet them where they are. I know that's what you want for your kid. And these interactions will start to get better for both of you when you make this type of change in the way that you respond. And then let's think about what changes long term. Kids learn self awareness, they learn to repair after rupture, they learn accountability without the shame and blame. Without the shame and blame. And you, the parent, you're going to experience fewer power struggles. I can hear some of you saying amen to that. Fewer power struggles, more trust between you and your kid, and fewer intense moments, explosions, complete shutdowns over time. So we're looking at long term. If you change the way you respond to moments like this one time, no, it's not going to make a lasting change. This is something that has to continue and to be a practice. And the more that you're able to show up this way, the more your kid feels safe when things get hard. The more they feel safe when things get hard, the less challenging behavior their nervous system is going to create in an effort to keep them safe because it's already going to sense safety. This is kind of this beautiful biological cycle. And we can get stuck in the hard part where a kid just doesn't feel safe most of the time. So we're seeing a lot of this fight, flight, or freeze. Or you can create the environment and the relationship where you can cycle with more safety. So I want to invite you this week to do one thing, one change based on what you've learned here. Pause before you label something as disrespect. Pause before you label something as opposition, defiant, any of those things. This isn't about manners. This is about capacity. This isn't about manners. This is about safety. This isn't about manners. This is about lagging skills. Use that sort of framework of an affirmation for you as a parent and plug into it what is true for your kid. But when you are met with what feels like disrespect, I want you internally to tell yourself, this isn't about manners. This isn't about my kid's moral compass. This is just about capacity and their nervous system. You're not lowering expectations. You're not being permissive. You're just meeting the nervous system where learning actually lands. In order for us to be available biologically to learn, we have to be regulated. And in these moments, your kid is clearly dysregulated. So you have to get back to regulation, which comes with a sense of safety. And then you can start to build lagging skills. You can start to work on different responses that they have. You can work more on creating more of a sense of safety for them with you in your home environment or teachers with you in the classroom. This is how you're able to make change. Anything else in these moments is not going to work. Head over to parentingadhdandautism.com for the show notes and so much more resources, parent training, community, so many things that I know are going to help you in your parenting or in educating kids who are neurodivergent, are complex kids. Thank you so much for being here and listening, and I will see you next time. Take good care.